phonics is delivered in the most effective way possible.
This is part of a kind of whole primary school plan for pushing reading and writing forward.
I think phonics is a whole, like, orbital plan from what I remember reading on the whole kind of company overview.
But this is part of our improvement plan.
Yeah.
It's part of the targets that we've got for your children, especially for progress.
Yeah.
Progress,
yeah.
which is the most important thing. Progress is more important than attainment.
Cool. Okay. Let's get started, shall we?
Should we get started?
All right. So today we're going to discuss phonics. It is a very active subject. Lessons are always taught very quickly, and so Ben is super keen to literally show you some of those things and encourage you to be involved in them as well, because what we're going to hopefully demonstrate, the final point here, is that when we teach phonics, we don't really need anything to do it, and neither do you. If you want to support reading development at home, you don't really need anything. So Ben is hopefully going to show you some activities and things that you can do that do not involve you going on Amazon and buying anything or getting a tutor in for your children or anything along those lines. These things are not really necessary. So a little bit of background. Phonics is taught Monday to Thursday just after lunch, so 1:10 till 1:35. This year we're levelling phonics across year 1, 2 and 3.
Can I just jump in here?
Go on, Ben.
We've also Miss Julia, this is Miss Julia from year 4, and Miss Julia has been assessing some of the year 4 children, especially the children who maybe need an intervention or are new to English, and I know that year 4, Julia, with Mr. Bateman, are doing some phonics stuff.
We were just talking about the lasting impact of the pandemic as well. Those year 4 children are now some of the children that did not get a year's worth of schooling, like in-person schooling, depending on where you are in the world. You've got a lot of online, and you know it's not an easy thing to do to teach reading to children that can't do it remotely. So yeah, I think year 4 is going to be a big focus this year. So as I said, we're teaching it 4 times a week. We're teaching it for around about 25 minutes each day, and we're levelled across the 3 year groups. So that means there are 10 groups, 12 members of staff and 10 groups, and each day the whistle goes, the children line up for lunch, they all file down, they go to the toilet, wash their hands, and they all dissipate throughout the garden corridor and the primary corridor into 10 different spaces with children from year 1, year 2 and year 3 all mixed together. So it's quite a lovely thing to see. The children are very independent now, been doing it for a few weeks, and they're really confident in where they are going to go. And it means that each child can get a very tailored level of support, because it's very, very difficult to have much of a background in this unless you've been, reading at home, since you were very young with your parents. I mean, that's not an expectation. Children are going to come in with zero knowledge at all, so that's absolutely cool, and that's what we get here at Britannica, is such a wide variety of starting points. The best thing that we as teachers can do is offer tailored support depending on that level, so this is what it allows us to do. The lesson is split up into 3 or 4 parts, and each part of the lesson is moved through very quickly because it's only 25 minutes, but that's what it's designed to do, and each part focuses on a different but equally essential skill. So, these are the bits that we use when we are teaching. We have our word cards here as well, green words and red words. We've got flashcards, which Ben's shown you just here, so these have the individual sounds on, and the children will come equipped with a mini whiteboard to do their writing. But, I mean, as you can see, there's no books here, there's no paper, there's not even pencils. The children will do a bit of writing, but it's all done in a very kind of messy, impromptu way, whatever feels natural. And so, as I said, what you would need to support this at home, in what would be a casual way during homework, is absolutely nothing. You just need a little bit of understanding, which hopefully Ben and I will give you today. Anything to add, Ben, or we'll move on to part number 1? Cool. So part number 1 of our lesson, and as I say, it's 3 parts to the lesson, or 4 depending on where you are. Part number 1 are the sounds. So we will go through all of the sounds that the children know, depending on the group that they're in. We recap them every single day, and we add in a new sound. Sounds are different to letter names, and they can be made up of 1, 2 or 3 letters forming one sound. So Ben's giving you an example there. You've got the letter S, but anybody want to guess the sound for letter S? Yeah, exactly. And A and W go together to make a sound. Anybody want to guess?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, a horrible one, yeah.
They're good.
Yeah, this is good. An absolutely horrible one, and the children, this is just one that all the children I've ever taught phonics struggle with. I've then picked a tricky one.
I've only got this one because Dave made me do this one for the last 2 days. I spent 2 days on an oar.
Yeah. Very difficult, it just doesn't make the sound that you think it's going to make, and this is the point, particularly with English, is that the sounds, they do not make the noise that you think they're going to make, and this is what makes English a very tricky thing to do. And each of the sounds usually have a special song or rhyme or something along those lines that helps you remember them. And Ben's going to demonstrate. This is his favourite part of the whole day.
Julie's going to help me as well. So you can make, there's lots of songs which go with things like Jolly Phonics, which is another programme that people know, but also you can make your own songs up, and that's a lot more fun than you can do with anything. So we kind of do Who Locked the Dogs Out a lot, we do like Who Let the Air Out, and we do like Twinkle Twinkle Little S. So maybe you can, what songs can you use? What songs can you use at home? Use any songs that they're listening to. If your children are listening to the Imagine Dragons, you can do an Imagine Dragons song. But if they're doing nursery rhymes, it could be, you can just use the nursery rhymes. So, in a more beautiful voice than that.
The more ridiculous you make yourself look, the better. The sillier it is, the better. The children will jump up and dance around and do silly voices and silly actions, and this is what will make it stick.
Who Let the Dogs Out is a really good one, because all children know this. I've been doing this one for 20 years. We just jump up and down and like, who let the oar out? Oh, and the kids love it. And they love their parents being silly.
Do you like Let It Go?
Let it go.
Let It Go? I've just thought that now. That's a big one. I'm going to bring that in. I've lost track of what I was thinking of there. So this is, as I said, this is the first part of the lesson. So we're recapping the sounds, and anything that's new, you're going to use one of Ben's strategies to embed that new sound. Maybe we only need to see it one time, maybe we see it for 2 or 3 days in a row, maybe the group can learn 4 new sounds a week, maybe they can only learn 1 new sound a week. Doesn't really matter, it's just about where the children are.
Yeah.
So
there's lots and lots of strategies to use. Can we go to the next slide? So we've got the song, which I was going to make you do, but you don't have to. There's also there's sound hunts. I don't know if any of you have ever seen Geraldine the giraffe with like a giraffe puppet, which you get on YouTube, and they'll have sounds there. And so if they've got the S, they'd go off we went around the house to find something beginning with S. And so you can do that with your own children. They do a scavenger hunt. So if they're at that point in year 1, they're just learning those first set of sounds, and I think it's in that first set of sounds, then they would run off around the house and be like, sing, song, and they'd be doing those different things they can run around. Sound arts. I used to work in reception in the UK, which is the equivalent of kindergarten, 4 and 5-year-olds, and we used to make the sounds on sand. We used to do these kind of make the big sounds, we'd draw them on sand, we'd make them with paint, we'd have rainbow letters, we'd create a whole rainbow sound.
Hannah Clark has got a lovely display in her classroom of exactly this, so she's working with the very beginners, so if she's got the S on her board, they've worked together to think of animals or any little picture. She's a very good drawer, so she's got a lovely display of all the words that the kids came up with together, so they're hunting words, looking around the classroom, thinking about what they know, and then she's beautifully drawn them, so it's an excellent way. Art is a great way to go.
Art's great, and it can be really sophisticated. It's not just 4-year-old going like that. I've got the eye there. You could do like a beautiful eye once, and anyone who's seen the letters at the front of the building will know you can do very beautiful letters at a very high level. Sound food, you can make cakes with it. Sound hunt, we've done. Look around you, what sounds can you see? What sounds can you hear?
Yeah. I think the point here is to reiterate again, you know, we're going to use these sound cards because this is the way we've been trained to do it. But to support us at home, we don't need anything. There's nothing specific here that you need to find or buy or anything like that. You can just set your children off. You can ask them what sound they were doing today. It doesn't even need to be that. You can ask them to just, name a sound, and off they go, and they can find things that are.
Yeah, just go for what you say. Don't come up to me and say, what box is that? Who makes that box? It's rewriting, that's it. It's not the product that matters.
No,
it's the games, it's the songs, it's the art, it's knowing how to segment and blend, it's knowing what red words is, all the things that Dave's going to show us.
Yeah, brilliant. On the subject of the sounds, before we move on to the next part of the lesson, these are the sounds that we go through. We'll share this with you, so please don't worry too much about memorising them all. And as Ben identified, sort of MAS, this is where we start. We follow through into the different phases, and then to the trickier sounds that are down in the bottom right corner. Before we move on, I'll just invite any questions about these sounds, because I think this is probably the part that, as non-native speaker English people, this is going to be the most challenging part. This is definitely the most challenging part for the children, is ensuring that the saying the sounds is correct. So if we can right now answer any questions that you might have about things your kids have brought home, then now's the chance.
Yeah, well, can I just mention?
Yeah, good idea.
So if we've got, I never said this sound properly as a child. So Miss Julia, can you help me with this? Is there only one way of saying it, Miss Julia? There's two ways. There's two ways. There's when you have your tongue just in front of your teeth and the tongue just on the other side of your teeth. And you just need to know that.
Yeah.
You just need to know.
It's a super tricky one, because the children they'll go for a word like which you can't sound out anyway, but they will have the first sound being either a V, so or maybe an F, so and they, it's kind of just a knowledge thing really, because the child will do that every single time, so you know that they're hearing it correctly, and you know that they've got the idea right, but it's just a little bit of a knowledge correction in that it's not a as in the. You need to stick your tongue out and say the instead.
And there's several of those. If you look up there, we've got 2 double O graphics. Yeah. And the children have to know which one is the long oo, as in moon, or is the bouncy as in book.
Yeah, yeah. And it helps to sort of visualise those with the little eyes inside the just got a little laser pointer on. I feel like it has. Oh, it does. Yeah. Look at that, brilliant. So you draw the eyes inside the 2 O's because it's in the word look. So it's just a very familiar, very easy way for the child to identify that is the shorter sound and not the oo that you might find in moon or something along those lines. So this is again the difficulty with learning to speak English, is that the sounds look the same but they say something different. Always tricky. The O as in snow just there, and the ow as in cow is another one. There's no difference there, of course. You can't see the difference there. You just have to. We tell the children to test it out. If you read a word like cow and you say comb, does that sound like a word I know? No, it doesn't. I'll try it with ow instead. Cow. Okay, most likely to be that.
And we have little actions, don't we, that go from the pictures. Mm-hmm. So for the O, it's I blow the snow. Like that. We'll get them to act it out. They love that.
So can I answer any questions, or can I answer any questions on just the sound at the moment?
We can do.
These are in front of the first page of the...
They are, yeah.
Sometimes I'm trying to find which one is this, and I'm trying to find an explanation to show it. But I need more examples of this. There is just one word or 2 words.
Examples of words?
This, yeah.
So we're going to go on to the next part, which is the next 2 parts of the lesson are reading and spelling in that order. And what I will tend to do before I go and teach my phonics lesson is I will Google O words, O-W, and Google will just provide me with a list of the words that I need or we might spell that day. They are provided by, so we follow Read Write Inc., which is a UK-based plan, a program. If you buy into it fully, then they will provide you with all the resources that you need, so which makes our lives a bit easier. But we don't have those. We don't really need them. So we tend to just make the words that we think we need. If again you go by your group, if say with Lena and with Dilla, if they were finding it very easy, you were telling the words and they were finding it easy, you might need another ow sound word, so cow or now. These are a bit too simple, so you might go for like flower, for example, for the next one to make it a little more challenging for them. And that's what we will do. But usually we'll just ask Google for a list of words that have got the sounds, and the best way to find them. Hello.
Because I try to speak with my children at home in English, but my pronunciation is also has some problem. It's not very well. So how about if I pronounce something, but they repeat is not correct with the one they learn from school? How they?
So, what's most important to your children is Mandarin. Yeah, so they need to be speaking Mandarin with you at home. That's home language is really important. And the sounds that go with the characters in Mandarin is really important. So please speak with your children in Mandarin at home, not English. But when you are doing it, use it with use the home readers that we send home. So use those stage readers, and those stage readers you can just sound out what's there. Start simply, and then you can learn it together with your children, and that's the loveliest way of doing it. And I know this thing about pronunciation. I'm from South London, and in South London we don't think, we think, don't we? We drink water. So in many ways, when I was 18 or 19, I went to university, and there's people speaking properly there. I had to relearn it, and you can relearn it, and that's fine.
And this is the thing, the pronunciation question is not a nationality thing. It's not, Spanish speakers will say it differently to English speakers. It's in England as well. The problem is huge. Not the problem, but the challenge is huge, because you work with when I trained, I worked with a teacher. My partner teacher was from the Republic of Ireland. Obviously, they're saying things massively different to the way that I'm saying them. But if they are in their hometown, everybody sounds like that. So, who is wrong? Nobody's wrong. This is the point. And we will, when we assess and when we get a view of where the kids are, we take these things into account. So if a child is consistently saying that the first sound in apple, for example, I would say ah, but if the child is saying apple, well, I know that they know it. I know that they know it. It just sounds different to them, and they are saying it differently, but they spell apple correctly, they identify the every time and say the same thing every time, so I know that they know it.
Regional dialects, fine.
Regional dialect is, well, fine, so, exactly, gone.
You mentioned the gestures, and just so I know that when you're starting to do the reading, is there somewhere where we can find the gestures that go along with them?
Right, so there's the little pictures that go with that, and there is also a whole range of gestures that go with other phonics schemes. So several of us have used phonics schemes from the past, so I still use stuff that I learned years ago. But
Jolly phonics.
I do use that, yeah, we do.
And
We let the
Again, if you
make your own ones up.
Make your own you can search them on YouTube. I think if like Ben says, there are many different phonics schemes, and this is just the one that I was trained in, so that's what I have encouraged people to use. But Johnny Phonics and things like this, letters and sounds. If you just search in YouTube phonics songs,
But rewriting doesn't have its own set of gestures that they're going to be doing in school.
This is what we encourage teachers to do: is teach the lesson the same 3 phases or 4 phases, so everybody does the same activities, but they do it in their own way. So you will look at my group and you'll see it being done totally different to another group, but you will see the same things being covered to allow for creativity.
So I know teaching that with Pooh at the zoo.
Yeah, Pooh at the zoo. Yeah, that's really right. They love that Pooh at the zoo.
Yeah.
But so we have the children come up with those actions themselves.
Okay.
In other schemes, there are set actions.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely for them to come up with them themselves. And I think that you think others can be similar, but every now and then they do something really strange. And we go with that.
Absolutely. All right, brilliant. So we will do the first part of the lesson. We will recap the sounds. Usually it's quite fast, so maybe 3 or 4 minutes, including putting in the new sound as well. And we move on to part number 2 of the lesson, which the term for is segmenting.
Should we quickly do the sounds?
Go ahead, do the sounds. I'll put them there.
So I've got the sounds here. Let's ready, steady, go.
Good.
It's in the wrong order. It's in the wrong order, isn't it?
Go back. This is a tricky one that the children will often get stuck on. This is the word are. Well, we are sitting in the auditorium. The sound is air. So you're thinking of care or share.
Yeah.
A tricky one. This is a tricky one because when we get on to reading the words as well, you see the words that can't sound out. This is also a word, of course, that doesn't sound like the sound. Welcome to learning English.
I can't hear you. Oh my gosh, this is a choir.
Shall I get some 5-year-olds?
Right, Miss Julia, really loudly, ready, steady. It's upside down again. That one's not even the right. Right, we'll leave it at that.
But again, I think that really aptly demonstrates the confusion that is really likely. If you don't go through it in an organised and systematic way when you start learning it, things can get confusing quite quickly. Cool. So we learn the sounds and then we start to segment, and segmenting is just a term for reading, just single word reading. We look at the sounds and we say the sounds that we can see or hear in each of those words. And here you can see these are the cards that we print these out sometimes, but again, don't tend to use them if you don't want to, depending on the teacher. And underneath you can see these little dots. You can see a dot, or Ben, would you just show us, Ben, like a sh sound? If you get two letters going together, put a line under it for me. You put a line under the sound as well, because it shows the children that these two letters go together to make a sound. If you see the dot, then the sound is by itself. If you see the S and the H going together to make sh, then you will see that it's a sound together. So the first thing we do is we say the sounds that are in the word, so we segment it, we split it up into pieces, and then we blend it back together again. So I wouldn't say just at, I would say at. And the children will do this with you just gesturing, or they will do it because they are more confident and they've had enough practice. And then as things get trickier, we'll remove the little dots or lines, the sound buttons that we call them. We'll remove those so the children are then working by themselves to work out what the sounds are. And we encourage the children to say the word as slowly as possible. Miss Walland used to say, stretch it out like bubble gum. So I wouldn't say mat quickly, I would say mat. And I'll say it as long and stretched out as I can to help me identify what sounds I'm hearing or seeing as I go along. Ben, you want to demonstrate? Shh. Perfect. As easy as that. So whilst it sounds like segmenting sounds like a tricky thing that you may not understand, it is simply just reading. So again, how can you support this at home? Well, stage readers is the perfect opportunity. Whenever you're reading them, read them a few times. Once you're confident, then you can start to say, well, what sounds can you see in this word then? How many sounds can you see in this word before you read it, before we go through it together?
All those stage readers, they're not lots of reading tree. They might be a cat, there's a few others, but they're all written.
Yeah.
So they have those sounds in them, and it is an appropriate graduation of sounds. And you will get, unfortunately, taken by surprise by the red words, by the angle words. So going back to that idea of A-R-E being the air sound, but also the word R, this is something that the children will also learn when they are reading, when they are segmenting those words. They will come across these, and this is our favourite part of the lesson probably, because we get to act really angry. These are red words, they're angry words. The point is that you cannot sound these words out. If you use the sounds to read these words, you're going to come up with something that is a little bit wrong. So you've got the word what here, W and H makes a what sound, that's fine. But if I sound it out, I'm going to say what at, wat. And this is not a word. I'm going to sound out do, do. The children love this because you're making a fool of yourself. They love this. We're looking at red words and I say, no, don't worry, I can do this one. Said. And they're like, ha, Mr. Milburn, you can't even read the word said. We're all having a good fun about it. But the kids know if the word is red, they know that they can't sound this out. And, unfortunately, the only thing to do is learn how it's spelled. We're just going to make so many mistakes with these words because there's no real pattern to them. For a couple, we make up little songs and things like THE spells the, we'll sing that and we'll sing that because we use it a lot.
You're going to sing?
But for I don't really sing it, I just say THE spells the.
I occasionally do, they get called tricky words.
Tricky words, red words, angle
there's
words.
a tricky word song,
Yeah.
which is red words. So it's going to say tricky word, you go,
Yeah.
red word.
Beautiful. So here's another way that when you're reading those home readers, you can support this and you can challenge your children. When they're reading the books, you can say to them, like, I want you to go through this page and tell me how many red words can you see, how many tricky words, how many angry words can you see, and you can have a bit of fun with it. You can say, no, I don't think this is an angry word. I think it says dot. What are we going to dot when we go to the shops? Your children are going to laugh at you and they're going to say, no, you're very silly. It's the red word do. Angry words come up a lot, and this is a tricky part of it as well.
Count the angry words.
Count the angry words.
How many angry words?
There was this, for example, this direction in this
last spelling direction, and the shun, like the last word.
Shun is a
sound, but it's something that it's 4 letters going together to make one sound, and in not very many words. It is a sound, but yeah.
And shush.
Shush, which is 5 letters.
5 letters. So there are 4 letters. Yeah, there's 4 letter and 5 letter phonemes.
So Ben's challenge.
Yes,
What is that? Said the cat. How many red words can you see?
3.
Any advance on 3?
You can read the.
Oh, it's not showing up on it.
So the green.
What is that? Said the cat. Just go for it or not. What is it then? What's the answer?
I think it's 3.
I think it's 4. What is and said and the.
So
And is.
Yes.
Is going to be is.
Yeah.
Again, that's up for debate, because sometimes the kids do know that sometimes an S by itself can say S, but I would say it's definitely included in these words. And here is an example of some of the tricky words that you'll see depending on where your child is within the school. They are a lot sort of simpler and more high usage in year 1 and 2, and then as you go further up the school, they become a bit more bespoke and a bit more. After that, it's really just vocab, I think, isn't it? You're just trying to learn as many words that don't fit the pattern as you possibly can. And again, it's just so tricky. I don't know how many other ways to say it. It's just so tricky because they're sometimes made up of sounds that we know. Like, for instance, the A sound here, we know this sound says A and Y together, but it says it doesn't say A. So it's not just single letters by themselves that will go wrong. It's the whole works really. Once again, welcome to learning English. This is the tough part about speaking English for the first time. Cool. Any questions on red words, or indeed just sort of segmenting and reading as well? Any questions?
We're going to sign up for a course.
You turn up at 1:10 every day. You can come down. We'll get you a space in Liana's group, and she'll take you through.
Do the assessment.
Oh, we do need to do an assessment first. Yeah, quite right. You might not be in Liana's group.
I think this was
Great. Part 3 is blending. So whereas segmenting was reading, blending is spelling. So you take the sounds that you have said, that you can hear, and you put them into a word to hopefully spell that word correctly. So when we are going through it, we will say the sounds first of all that we can hear in the word. We'll count the sounds, and I like to use my spelling fingers. I'll tell the children, show me how many sounds you think you can hear. They can pinch the sounds as they say them, and then they will write the words. The trick here is to teach the children to break that word apart whilst they're thinking about it. So I don't want somebody to say to me, at cat. I want them to say, at, and then write that down. Before we say it, write it down, because we have broken that into the sound, and now I'm going to blend it whilst I write it. So it's just a little point there to kind of divide those two things up, is you want to break that word down, and then put it back together as you're writing it. And here is a point where, when the children have learnt more sounds, they might use what you would call the wrong sound. So an A and a Y goes together to make an A sound, so does an A and an I, like in a word like rain. If a child's writing play, P-L-A-I, no problem. And I would encourage you to have no problem with that either. Spellings will get corrected throughout a child's school life, and eventually they will start to think, is it this sound or is it this sound? You know, it sounds the same but it looks different, which one should I use? Right at the beginning, and even in year 3, phonetically plausible attempts are completely...
And even in year 4 as well, when we're teaching children English, when we're doing a piece of writing, we are focusing on something in the writing. We're focusing on, can they use adjectives, can they use adverbs, can they use adverbs in different places of the sentences, maybe at the beginning or the end. We're not going to start correcting the spelling of play. That, because that's not the purpose of it. We will give feedback according to what we are doing at the time. And when we assess the children's writing, which we're all doing at the moment, we have one thing which says, is it phonetically plausible? And that's what...
This appears in so much of our assessment, doesn't it? If the spelling is phonetically plausible, then we'll allow it. That's totally fine. That's what we want to see. The children are using the skills that we've given them at that point. They're using their knowledge to write or to read or whatever they're doing, and that's absolutely perfect. Yeah, perfect. Once again, of course, you're going to end up seeing the angry words when you come to spelling, and there is no way to sound these words out, as discussed. So we will, when we're reading them, we'll see a couple, and then when we're spelling them, we'll just say, right, here's a red word we're going to try and spell as well. Get your spelling fingers like this, and I say to the children, throw them away, they're not going to help you, you can't sound this word out. How do we spell the red word? Said. We'll say it a couple of times, we'll think about it, and then we'll write it down. And we'll get it wrong 9 times out of 10, and then eventually we'll start to remember. As I said, unfortunately, we just got to remember. So, Ben, do you want a demo spelling?
Demo spelling?
You want to have a go? You want to students have a go?
A what?
We'll do a little spelling. Come on, students. You sure you have? Right. So this is just to give you a visual idea of what it would look like. Miss Julie, will you show me your spelling fingers?
Yes.
Right, hide them, because I don't want Miss Willoughby to cheat, okay? We're both going to have a go, so I don't want you to cheat.
Okay.
Right, my word I want you to spell is the word chat. You chat with your friends. How many sounds can you hear? 3, 2, 1, show me. 3 sounds. 3 sounds, Mr. Willoughby. Very good. Can you show me 3 sounds? Can you show me 3 sounds? Can you listen to my instructions? Brilliant. Well done. So it doesn't matter. Mr. Willoughby showed me 4 sounds, but I'm not going to dwell on it. We're just going to correct it as we go. That's absolutely fine. Maybe you thought I said letters. I don't know. All right, brilliant. Everyone say the word chat.
Chat.
Good. Pinch the sounds. Ready? Good. Write it down. Don't forget to put the sound buttons in each of There we go. And this is how we go about it. Maybe the children have made a misconception and they put an F where they've heard an A. No problem. We're going to correct it as a team. We're all going to go through it. We'll maybe take the opportunity to name the letters as well here and just correct it as we go, move on to the next one very quickly and without any kind of hold up for massive corrections. The more we see, the better we're going to get at doing it, so it goes fast as well. Thanks very much. And then, of course, we'll practice words in the same way, but without sounding them out. Any questions about spelling? Again, this is a big thing because, of course, we do send a spelling test home, and you will probably be looking for multiple ways to practice the spelling test, and this is a good opportunity to do things like this.
It's good, yeah, it's a really good way. We often, in year 3 and 4, we often send them home as a look, say, right, you look at it, you cover it, you write it, but that doesn't mean you need to do it like that. They normally follow spelling rules, the ones that we're sending home. So I had a little message on my desk the other day when we were doing EY. Someone wrote me a little message with all the EY words in them. That ended up there. That was lovely. So children can write sentences with them in, they can sound them out with you, they can sing songs with the words in. There's lots to do.
Yeah. And we haven't, of course, started spelling testing in year 1 yet, but when we do, something that the younger children will engage with, I think, really easily is write these words in a variety of ways. If you can get chalk out and write them in the garden, you can write them with paint, you can write them with colouring pencils, write them big, write them small. It's all good ways to practice, and you don't need any extra resources for it as well. So when those start to come out, a good way to do it.
And of course, in year 1, that's really good for those fine motor skills.
Absolutely, you're practicing with your pencil at the same time as well. So. And again, just to recap on some of those more tricky words that you might come across. So part 4 of the lesson is something that not all the groups will get to. If the children are less secure with a smaller range of sounds, for example, then we will just focus more on the first 3 parts of the lesson, learning new sounds and putting them into words, reading them, hearing them, that kind of thing. If the children are super confident or they've worked their way further through the phonics scheme, which of course will happen as they go up to school, then we will go on to applying that knowledge. So it's as simple as taking some of the words that you've been spelling that day, maybe some of the red words as well, and putting them into a sentence. And it relies on something that we abbreviate to MTYT, but it's my turn and your turn. So it's as simple as me saying the first word in my sentence is the, and I will say the, and it's got this very explicit gesture as well. And I say the, and I point to the kids, and they all shout the, exactly, simple as that. So it's my turn, and then it's your turn. So we will apply what we've learned. So if we've been spelling red word said, red word the, and we've spelled chat as well. I'll think about a sentence that's got those words in, so I might say, Mr. Willoughby said, don't chat. That'll be my sentence, so we'll build it together. So I will say, you're going to help me, Mr.
Willoughby.
No, you're going to help me, my turn and your turn. Mr.
Said.
Mr. Copy me, Mr.
Mr.
Willoughby.
Willoughby.
Mr. Willoughby said.
Mr. Willoughby said.
And we go through the sentence like that, we build it up together, and then the children, which is very, very smooth normally, the children can then make a small change to that sentence. The idea being they make a small change, I give them all the structure that they need to apply a little bit of the knowledge that they picked up that day. So we'll say, Mr. Willoughby said, don't chat. And then I say, right, I want you to make up a sentence, but I want you to change the word said. So we might be doing in our writing and in our literacy lessons, we might be doing different ways to say said. So you're going to change it. Your sentence is not going to be Mr. Willoughby said don't chat, Mr. Willoughby shouted don't chat, Mr. Willoughby yelled don't chat, Mr. Willoughby whispered don't chat. So we tie it into whatever we're doing, across curricular if we can, and build up the children's vocab in that way. And then they will just go and do exactly the same thing. They'll make up their sentence. If they are fast, confident writers, they might write that sentence as well, and then they'll read it out and share it with their friends. So again, only going to get here if we're confident with the other three phases. Sometimes those bits just take a little bit longer, so that's all we're going to focus on, and those are the three most important parts. Application we're doing in plenty of other places, so we don't necessarily need to focus on the theory. Cool. Anything to add, Mr. Willoughby, on my turn, your turn?
No.
And again, we're going to write these sentences down most of the time, but at home, you can...
Sorry, when I do my turn, your turn, I technically have a word bank, so it gives them a choice of words, and they can move those words about, and then that's the scaffold, so they'll start with those set of words, and then when they go beyond it, they will be creating their own words.
And as I said, we're going to write these down, but again, at home, you don't need to write these down. You can say these things if you are speaking with your children and you're saying, what red words did you learn in phonics today? And I don't know, there's just a day where they can remember, which normally they can't, of course. And they say to you, we did the red word don't today. You say, brilliant, let's make up a don't sentence together, and then you can change it a little bit to make it say something silly or along those lines. But I think, Ben, that was nice when you were saying the next word in the sentence. I mean, it's a nice way to go about it, isn't it? Again, so you can just play around with that, my turn, your turn, and make it about, no, I'm going to take a turn to say something, and then you're going to take a turn. Maybe it's not the same thing this time. Maybe we're just going one word at a time. Play games, exactly.
Words all the time.
Any questions about application, part 4 of the lesson? So like I said, the important thing here, I think, to remember is that we just may not get to it. We may just be focusing on the foundation before we move on to this one. And that's the final part of the lesson. So just to recap, this is how it goes. We look at the sounds, we recap the sounds, we learn the new ones. We will then read some words with those sounds in. We'll spell some words with those sounds in, maybe some red words, and then if we can, we'll get on to doing a little bit of application through writing. And that's that. That's all that phonics is for us. As I said, I think today's presentation has gone quite quickly, and that's the point. We go quickly.
Bang, 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 bang. Don't spend ages faffing over it.
No.
It's like when I deliberately got the number of sounds wrong in chat, Dave was like, no, let's just move on. It's three, isn't it? You've got to confuse the numbers of lessons for a bit.
This is it. It is a short space of time, but that's what it was designed to fit into. Is 20 to 25 minutes is a phonics lesson. We do it regularly. There's a difference. We do it 4 times a week, which is the point.
And as part of teaching generally, pace is always really important. Bang, 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 bang. That's why you will always find that Sunday morning is a far better time for your children to do the homework than Thursday at 7:30 p.m.
And again, just to sort of reiterate there that whilst we are levelling across the year groups to ensure that support is appropriate where it's needed, the groups are very fluid. We will revisit them at the end of each term anyway. We'll move people around in a kind of formal way. But if we are talking to the different adults that are leading the groups and they say, this person is just flying, I don't know what's happened in their assessment that they did, but they know way more than they showed you that day. That person's going to change groups tomorrow. It's not about being in a set or stuck there for the whole year. That's not a good idea at all. So we will take those children based on what they show us that day, and we'll think about do they need to move around, what kind of support are they needing right at the moment. And I think that personally each part of the lesson is essential. We will, when we're discussing it with staff, we'll say you can't, you need to move a bit quicker, basically. It's a hard thing to say to people, but you need to go a bit quicker. We don't want to miss bits out. Give the, number 4 is a different question. Maybe we do miss this out, but those first 3 parts, if a member of staff is saying, oh, it just takes me ages to get through the spellings, I'm going to say, well, perhaps we can look at ways to make that a bit faster, because these are all essential skills and we don't want to miss any of them.
Yeah, if you slow down, the children slow down. That's it.
Absolutely. Pace is key. And again, just to draw that point, is if we don't use too many things, I tend to go to my phonics lesson with my marker pen in my pocket, and that's about it. And you guys, same sort of story at home. You don't need too many things. Ben has made a little table here of ways that you could do it at home, and just added into it from before, the reading and spelling sections that we saw, just different ways to do this without any kind of resources, without any kind of prior planning or anything along those lines, just using what you've got at home, what you might, kids might bring home in their reading bag or anything along those lines.
And they will have ideas.
And they will have ideas. This is it. You use them, of course, because they've seen it happen so many times, they will have ideas. So I'll leave that up there. I'm going to go on to questions, but I'll leave that up there whilst we're talking. So if we can answer any questions, then fire away.
Just this technical one, what was the speed word which was on the slides, or speed word, I think it was one of the slides.
It might have been speed sounds.
Speed sounds.
Yeah, that's just the, it's one of the terms that the Read Write Inc, the phonics program, uses to describe what Ben was doing when he was showing you the sounds. We go through them in a very speedy way, so they become your speed sounds.
So a lot of this has, the particular schemes have their own names for it. So like speedy sounds. But actually, we're just sounding out. We're sounding out. When we're talking about red words, the technical name for them is common extension words. But they get called various things. Because if I'm talking to a 7-year-old and I say, no, we're doing the common extension words, it just doesn't sound very good.
It doesn't sound very fun.
They can probably cope with vocabulary, it's just not as much fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Cool. Okay. Well, I think that I'm going to share the presentation. Maybe in the newsletter.
I put the video and the presentation in the parent workshop wakelet, which is in the Canvas pages.
It's all linked on Canvas, isn't it? Okay, perfect. I think that, if you guys have any questions that come up later once this has all gone in, or you've forgotten most of it, which is probably what will happen, then please just get in touch with Ben or I. Watch it back if you need to. Have a look at the presentation, but just shoot me and Ben an email.
Because this is the overview. There's lots of intricacies with what happens with children who come when they're absolutely brand new and they don't even have that at the beginning. There's also intricacies as to what happens when the children have all of their sounds.
Yeah.
I'm doing stuff with the children who've got all of their sounds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're kind of going beyond this a little bit.
It's interesting to say that as well. It links in. We're talking a lot with the EAL department at the moment as well, and how they approach sound learning in their specific language lessons, and there's a lot of crossover in that as well. Great. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. It's nice to see so many people.